But then when you zoom out, it's like actually we're pushing people into products where they're going to lose a lot more and they have no protection, which should be the exact opposite of what RG strives to do.
So
I think that
turn.
also.
Go ahead.
That also, when I was at SBC Lisbon, how big is that dog?
Really not that big.
I moderated a panel on positive play, and it was really interesting to get that different view on responsible gaming. Because I agree, Alan. There's an element there that where we're almost pushing players in the opposite direction. But when you start to frame the industry in a more positive way, right? There's so much negativity around sports betting. There's always news in the press about gambling addiction and pressures, which rightly so needs to be covered. But we don't talk about the positive impact enough. Yeah. And I think there's still a big job to be done in how we switch that discussion and how we're talked about in the press, because there is a lot of good being done. There's a lot of charitable donations. There's a lot of funds going into schools and education. And I think it's really important that we talk about that. And I think that, again, pushing the industry into a more positive light will also help players make the decisions.
We actually talked about with Martin Litschko on our podcast about that, but we should talk about also the positive sides. So let's move on to our next question, because I think given my ADHD, I just diverted from this. And in a fragmented market, how can cooperation between platforms, content providers, and payment partners help operators deliver a more consistent or maybe sustainable player experience? So, Alan, you're the first one to go.
Oh, we're trying to stay positive, so let me know. I'm kidding. I'm a big believer that, and this is what's driven growth in our business, is I think being curious is key to growth on every business out there. And I think there needs to be more roles at platforms, payment providers, games providers, agencies, etc., where we sit down and we talk to each other and we get an understanding of what do you have that we can leverage? What do they have that you can leverage? And not put up these, as I mentioned earlier, these walls where it's just right away, we don't have the bandwidth or the availability to do anything for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. The reality is, in how quickly technology moves these days, if we're planning 12 months out, we're obsolete, right? So I think there's more cooperation across each of these types of companies to be able to sit down and say, hey, we come across this with Intellytics quite often, and it's very frustrating where we'll have an operator that wants to use us, and then their PAM will tell us, oh, well, we don't have your integration live, and it's going to take 6 months. And the reality is we actually never even had a conversation with that platform for them to even look at our integration docs to evaluate it. And again, I'm not throwing every PAM under the bus, because there are some who have open APIs and make things very easy. But I think going to how can you make it as easy to facilitate any type of integration as possible is what's going to drive growth for every company on this call. Because the reality is the more walls that we put up in each of our businesses, the less opportunity ends up being driven our way down the road. And I just think just more open conversation, more collaboration, less putting walls up between what each of us do, I think is key. Now that's a lot easier said than done. I fully understand what I'm asking here. But I do think having a role internally that just explores opportunity and how we can improve, I think is key.
All right. So